We are very well aware of how complex the human body is. If we are asked, which is the most vital organ in our body? It's undoubtedly the heart, known as the most hard-working organ. The heart, which is the first organ to develop in the human body, establishes its four chambers by 4 weeks of development, whereas week 6 involves cardiac outflow separation and descent of the heart and the lungs into the thorax. Now let us discuss about those regions of the heart which is of utmost importance for the coordinated blood flow in the body, yet whose development is not much elaborated about. Yes, the septa of the heart. During the development of the heart, the right atria and the left atria can be slowly distinguished using the interatrial septum. Did you know that initially the septum developed to divide the right and left atria are not completely closed? Here comes the foramen primum, the space between the initially developed septum primum and the atrioventricular cushion. The foramen primum allows the right to left shunting of blood since the lungs are not yet functional. And as the septum grows, the perforations in the upper part of the septum primum develops another opening called the foramen secundum. Then what about the foramen primum? It grows and joins the AV cushion, which means it's no longer there. It is also important to note that we cannot just allow the mixing of oxygenated and deoxygenated blood. So what can help us? Yes, we need a valve-like mechanism. There is a formation of another septum called the septum secundum, which helps in the oblique passage of blood called the foramen ovale. But after the birth, does this still remain? Oh, does that mean there are still spaces between the atria? No. The foramen ovale after birth develops into a depression called the fossa ovalis. The mechanism before birth was much needed as there should never be a stop in the right to left shunting of blood until the lungs start functioning. We also have a septum dividing the ventricles, right? The interventricular septum. There are mainly three parts, namely muscular, membranous, and bulbar. The muscular part forms the major portion which develops from the cardiac muscle. The membranous part develops from the atrioventricular septum, and the bulbar septum develops from the neural crest cells. We have often heard of anomalies associated with the septa. But have you ever thought, why does this happen? Due to the common origin, anomalies of the atrioventricular septum are associated with the anomalies of the interventricular septum. Did you know that we just don't have all the septa developed in the linear fashion? We have the spiral septa seen associated with the Trunchus arteriosus. Here, as you can see, for the movement of deoxygenated blood from the right ventricle to the pulmonary trunk and the movement of oxygenated blood from the left ventricle to the aortic artery, this spiral mechanism is needed. But in this case as well, there are some anomalies. Sometimes the septa is absent, leading to the mixing of blood. This is called persistent Trunchus arteriosus. Similarly, a non-spiral septum can lead to the transposition of great arteries. And even if the spiral septum is present, if there is an anterior displacement, there is a tetralogy of Fallot, that is, overriding of aorta, pulmonary stenosis, that is, reduction of blood flow to the lungs, right ventricular hypertrophy, that is, increased workload, and associated ventricular septal defect. Thus, it makes us realize how important even the tiny structure in our body is and how important development of each part of the heart is. It is indeed a remarkable mechanism in humans.